This week, 67 students at Middlebury College in Vermont were disciplined for shutting down a campus talk by conservative author Charles Murray. It's the latest in a running battle between liberal student groups and right-wing provocateurs, and it raises a key question. Should freedom of speech protect the protester or the speaker?
That is completely off subject.
We're not going to go down.
Well, there's a privilege resolution to people.
If I may just, this question, if I know, I'll make it.
Here in Wisconsin State House, when it comes to debating free speech, there's nothing legislators love more than the sound of their own voice.
I think that's what they call political grandstanding.
I wish I had stopped you earlier because you were completely off the subject of that. That had nothing to do with free speech whatsoever. And I'd be very disappointed that after I asked you to stay on subject, that you failed to do that.
The political catfighting is in response to Republican Representative Jesse Kramer's free speech bill, which would radically overhaul how expression at the state's public universities is governed.
Every freshman coming in, and as Representative Baldwin brought up, every person that transfers over potentially should be educated on what the First Amendment is about, because a lot of these kids coming to college don't know what it's about. They've been coddled their entire lives.
How acute is the problem of free speech and repression of free speech here in Wisconsin?
A lot of the legislation that I work on is proactive. We haven't gotten to that point in Wisconsin that we've had someone that is not allowed to speak. We don't want to get to that point.
Kramer's bill does a few things. It forces colleges to establish a free speech board and remain neutral on public policy controversies. Colleges can be fined for shielding students from speakers they find deeply offensive. And student protesters who interfere with the speech of others by, say, drowning out a speaker from being able to deliver a speech could be fined and even expelled.
Violent, abusive, indecent, profane, boisterous, obscene, unreasonably loud, or other disorderly conduct that interferes with the free expression of others.
So the big key there is that interferes with the free expression of others. That statement in there means that this is just an aspirational list of things that we've just decided to throw in there.
How are you going to not only define what interferes is, how would you suggest that the University Wisconsin system actually polices interference?
If you get accused of interfering materially and substantially disrupting someone's free expression and free speech, you will go through the hearing process. If you're found guilty of it, that's where we're going to decide what that ultimately means.
UW-Madison sociology major Savian Castro took time out from finals to testify against the bill.
This bill limits my First Amendment right to object to harmful ideas.
He's one of over 170,000 students Kramer's bill would affect.
Do you feel heard in this process?
It took me 5 hours to testify today. I'm a black kid at a predominantly white institution. I have to deal with people saying the N-word at bars every night, and I have to withstand it. We all have to deal with our own adversity, and if someone is having their speaking fees covered, they should be able to withstand some protests at their events, especially when they say incendiary things.
It's not just students in Wisconsin facing new restrictions on how they can protest. California, Michigan, North Carolina, Louisiana, and Virginia have all introduced similar bills, and most have seen campus protests make headlines. All of these bills are a replica of one model proposal from conservative think tank, the Goldwater Institute. Jonathan Butcher is one of the authors.
Let's take, for example, the Charles Murray incident at Middlebury, where students got up and were so loud. And there was so much disturbance and chanting that he could not be heard. And then, of course, what happened afterwards when the professor that he was with, was injured. And
so injuries and violence, I think that everyone agrees, that you can't commit an act of violence against somebody. We already have those laws in place. We also already have a law on the books that's called the First Amendment. Mm-hmm. Why do we need more laws around free speech?
Well, I think this is an avenue to protect free speech because it's not being done in a satisfactory way on campuses now.
I think this is just a bunch of nonsense. I think this is a bunch of Republicans and right-wingers who want to quell free speech on campus. They are doing exactly what they are accusing the other side of doing. One Wisconsin now.
Scott Ross, the executive director of a progressive advocacy group, is fighting to kill the Goldwater bill. The phenomenon exists, though, right? Conservative speakers are being shouted down, drowned out when they're coming to college campuses.
Boo-hoo. Boo-hoo.
Is it boohoo, though? It's boohoo now, right, because, it's against the side or political spectrum that you find abhorrent.
When the government comes in and says you have to create laws that expel students for offering their opinion, even if it's loud, that's a prior restraint, and that is a violation of the Constitution, in my opinion.
But what counts as a violation of free speech tends to oscillate depending on who's doing the talking.
But when he shouts and shouts and shouts and tries to deny to the majority the right to listen, then I think you ought to stop it.
What's being said.
The ringleaders should have been taken by the scruff of the neck and thrown out of the university once and for all.
And which side feels like they're being harmed.
I don't agree that you, when you become students at colleges, have to be coddled and protected from different points of view.
Liberal students form the majority of voices on college campuses. So it's no surprise the students the Goldwater bill is most likely to protect are conservatives.
Isn't this proposal, isn't this legislation really just you trying to readdress the balance a bit to move things from the left and bring it back a bit more towards the right?
We would be engaged on this regardless of the speakers or the positions that they were bringing on campus.
You'd introduce this legislation if it was all left-wing
would.
Speakers?
Absolutely would. Absolutely would, because at some point it would change.
Being enforced and utilized, that's why in this
There's
bill...
no way to know.
Well, can I finish?
Yeah, but
you want to interrupt me?